top 10 kids' stories and 5 more magical tales inside Emily's Star Dreams.
Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between rolling hills, there lived a little girl named Emily. Emily was known far and wide for her curious nature. She was always asking questions and seeking answers to the mysteries of the world. One clear night, as Emily lay on the soft grass in her backyard, she looked up at the twinkling stars in the sky. They fascinated her. She wondered why they shone so brightly and what secrets they held. Emily decided she would find out. The next day, she set out on a quest to find the answer. She climbed the tallest hill in her village and found an old man named Mr. Oliver, who was known as the village's wise elder. Emily approached him and asked, "Mr. Oliver, why do the stars shine so brightly at night?" Mr. Oliver smiled kindly and said, "Ah, young one, the stars are like the dreams of the night sky. They shine to remind us that there is always light, even in the darkest of times. Each star has a story of its own, waiting to be discovered." Emily was fascinated by this answer, but she still had more questions. She asked, "But how far away are the stars, and why do they twinkle?" Mr. Oliver sat down and explained, "The stars are incredibly far away, beyond what we can imagine. They twinkle because their light has to travel through Earth's atmosphere, and it dances and shimmers as it makes its journey to us." Emily felt her curiosity satisfied, but wanted to know one more thing. "Mr. Oliver, what's the brightest star in the sky?" Mr. Oliver pointed to the evening sky, and there, shining brilliantly, was a star. "That, my dear," he said, "is the North Star. It's a guide for travelers, helping them find their way. Like a friend, it's always there, steadfast and true." Emily thanked Mr. Oliver for his wisdom and returned to her home, feeling content and full of wonder. She realized that the stars were not just specks of light in the sky, but storytellers, sharing their tales with those who gazed upon them. From that day on, Emily became the stargazer of her village. She shared her newfound knowledge with her friends and family, and together they would lay on the grass, looking up at the twinkling stars, and imagine the wonderful stories they had to tell. And so, the little girl with a curious heart learned that the world is filled with mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and that sometimes all you need to do is look up at the night sky to find the most enchanting stories of all.
The Penguin Who Dared.
At a time, in the cold and remote Antarctic, there lived a small penguin named Percy. Percy was different from all the other penguins in his colony. While his friends and family would dive into the icy waters and swim gracefully, Percy had a tremendous fear of water and didn't know how to swim. This fear made him feel alone and different, but he also had a unique determination to find a way to overcome his fear. The other penguins often laughed at him, except for his best friend Penny, an adventurous and always positive penguin. Penny never made fun of Percy. Instead, she tried to encourage him and find ways to help him. "Don't worry, Percy. We all have something special to offer. We just need to find your way to shine," she always said with a smile. One day, while Percy and Penny were exploring a secluded corner of the colony, they found something surprising, an old raft made of wooden planks and ropes, partially buried in the snow. It seemed to have been abandoned by some human explorer. Penny had a brilliant idea. "Percy, we could use this raft to help you feel comfortable in the water without having to dive right in." With a lot of effort and teamwork, they managed to repair the raft. Percy felt nervous, but also excited. They started slowly, rowing close to the shore. Day by day, Percy gained more confidence. Penny was always by his side, singing cheerful songs and telling funny stories to keep his spirits high. During their journeys, they discovered that the raft not only helped Percy, but also allowed them to explore further than ever before. They found dazzling ice caves, views of auroras, and new friends like Sam, a funny seal, and Tony, an albatross who loved to tell jokes. However, one afternoon, when they were exploring a new area, a sudden storm arose. The wind and waves were strong, and the raft began to sway dangerously. Percy, despite his fear, knew he had to do something. He remembered all the lessons and confidence he had gained. He took the helm firmly and, with Penny by his side, guided the raft to a safe cove. The experience, though terrifying, taught Percy that he had the ability to overcome his fears when it truly mattered. As they reached the shore, everyone hugged and laughed with relief. News of Percy's bravery quickly spread through the colony. The other penguins began to see him differently, not as the penguin who couldn't swim, but as the brave penguin who had faced his fears to save his friends. Over time, Percy not only learned to swim, but also became a respected leader in the colony. He taught the younger ones that being different wasn't a weakness, but an opportunity to find new strengths and ways to contribute. And so, in the cold lands of the Antarctic, the story of Percy the Penguin became a lesson in bravery, friendship, and perseverance. A story that taught that, with support and determination, any fear can be overcome.
Turtle versus Hummingbird.
In a lush forest, where the trees touched the sky and the flowers danced to the rhythm of the wind, lived Lucy, a turtle as slow as she was wise. One day, as Lucy walked with her calm and steady pace, Zoe, a hummingbird with bright colors and as fast as lightning, buzzed around her in circles. "Lucy, you are so slow! How can you stand to go at a turtle's pace?" Zoe mocked, fluttering from flower to flower with a speed Lucy couldn't match. Lucy, with a serene smile, simply replied, "Each of us has our own rhythm and way of enjoying the journey, Zoe." Unable to understand Lucy's calmness, Zoe proposed a challenge. "I challenge you to a race to the distant lake, Lucy. That way, I'll prove that speed always wins." Despite knowing the odds were against her, Lucy accepted the challenge. "All right, Zoe, I accept your challenge. May the best one win." The next day, before the sun peeked over the horizon, the animals of the forest gathered to watch the race. Zoe, confident of his victory, mocked Lucy, who simply smiled and prepared for the long journey. With the sound of a large leaf falling to the ground, the race began. Zoe shot forward, disappearing from sight in an instant, while Lucy moved at her steady and slow pace. Zoe reached the lake in no time, and seeing how far away Lucy was, decided to take a nap. "I have plenty of time," he thought, closing his little eyes. Meanwhile, Lucy continued her journey without stopping, step by step, with determination and without worrying about the distance or time. Her path was filled with animals cheering her on, impressed by her perseverance. When Zoe woke up, the sun was high in the sky, and to his surprise, he found Lucy just a few steps from the lake. In a frenzy, Zoe flew as fast as he could towards the lake, but it was too late. Lucy, with her slow but steady pace, had arrived just before him. The forest animals applauded Lucy, not just for her victory, but for the lesson everyone learned that day. Perseverance and self-discipline are stronger than speed and arrogance. From that day on, Zoe no longer mocked Lucy's slowness. Instead, he became one of her biggest admirers, always remembering that true value lies not in how fast we arrive, but in how we enjoy and appreciate each step of the journey. And so, in the heart of the lush forest, the story of the turtle and the hummingbird became a life lesson for everyone, teaching that sometimes going slow and steady is the best way to achieve our dreams.
Ellie and her long trunk.
Once upon a time, in the vast and vibrant African savanna, there lived a young elephant named Ellie. Ever since she was a baby, Ellie had been different. While the other little elephants played happily, swinging their small trunks from side to side, Ellie's trunk was, well, let's just say it was something extra. It was so long that when she tried to drink water from the river, her trunk reached all the way to the other side. When she tried to sniff a flower, her trunk would get tangled in the nearby tree branches. This made her feel a bit odd and, at times, quite sad. "Oh, what a trunk!" Ellie sighed as she gazed at her reflection in the water. "Why can't I be like the other elephants?" The other elephants in the herd, though they didn't mean any harm, would often laugh at Ellie's misadventures. "Watch out, Ellie! Don't get tangled up in your own trunk," they'd say with a chuckle. And while Ellie tried to smile, deep down, she felt like she would never truly fit in. One day, as the herd was resting under the shade of a giant baobab tree, a group of curious animals appeared on the savanna. They were the jumping monkeys, known for their mischief and love of pranks. They had been searching for days for a new place to hide their golden bananas, the most treasured treasure in the jungle. "Friends, this place is perfect," exclaimed the monkey leader upon seeing the wide savanna. However, when they started digging to bury the bananas, they realized the ground was too hard. They needed help. That's when they noticed Ellie, who was practicing how to pick up apples from the ground with her trunk. "Hey, friend," the monkeys called out. "We've got the perfect job for someone with such an impressive trunk." Ellie, surprised that anyone admired her trunk, approached curiously. "What is it?" she asked shyly. "We need to dig a big hole to bury our bananas, but we don't have the right tools. Your trunk is perfect for the job," the monkey said excitedly. Ellie felt flattered, and for the first time, she felt proud of her trunk. With a determined gesture, she began to dig. Her long and strong trunk moved with incredible precision, lifting the earth as if it were the easiest task in the world. The monkeys cheered and shouted with joy as Ellie made the biggest hole they had ever seen. When she finished, the monkeys filled the hole with their golden bananas and carefully covered it up. As a thank you, they gave Ellie one of the bananas, something very few animals in the jungle had ever tasted. "Thank you, friend," said the monkey leader. "Today, you showed us that being different isn't just good, it's extraordinary." Ellie smiled for the first time with all her heart. As she returned to her herd, she felt something had changed. The other elephants who had been watching from a distance no longer laughed at her. Now they looked at her with admiration. "Ellie, you're our hero," said the oldest elephant, giving her a pat on the back. "Thanks to you, we've learned that everyone has a special talent. It doesn't matter how we look. What matters is what we do with what we have." Ellie, with her long and wonderful trunk, understood that true beauty isn't about looking like everyone else, but about being yourself and using your differences to do good. And so, Ellie became the happiest elephant in the savannah, not because her trunk was the longest, but because she now knew it was extraordinary. It doesn't matter how you look or how you're different from others. What really matters is how you use what you have to help others and be the best version of yourself. Each of us is unique, and it's that uniqueness that makes us valuable.
Lucas and the Lie of Courage.
Once upon a time, there was a boy named Jonathan. Jonathan was a very curious and quite mischievous boy, always looking for new adventures and ways to surprise his friends. One day, while exploring his grandmother's old attic, he found a mysterious ring. Without thinking twice, he put it on and, to his amazement, became invisible. At first, being invisible seemed like the best trick in the world. Jonathan could explore the town without being seen and hear the most interesting secrets. He could take sweets from the jar without anyone noticing and play pranks on his friends without them knowing who it was. But soon, Jonathan began to realize that his new ability brought not only fun. One day, while invisible, Jonathan heard his best friend, Tom, talking to other kids. "Sometimes I wish Jonathan would be more honest," said Tom. "It bothers me when he plays heavy pranks and doesn't admit it was him." Jonathan, feeling a pang of guilt, began to understand that his invisible actions had visible consequences. That night, Jonathan reflected on what he had heard. He realized that, although being invisible gave him power, it also gave him the responsibility to use it wisely. He'd decided that the next day he would change his behavior. The next day, Jonathan saw Mrs. Maggie desperately looking for her lost purse. Without thinking twice, he found it and left it at her door. Although no one knew it was him, Jonathan felt warmth in his heart. Being invisible allowed him to help without seeking recognition. A few days later, Jonathan saw a group of kids bullying a new girl at school. Invisibly, he intervened, scaring away the bullies and comforting the girl. Although no one knew of his heroic act, Jonathan felt he had done the right thing. One afternoon, Jonathan decided to confess his past pranks to his friends. "Guys, it was me who played those pranks. I'm really sorry," he said, expecting the worst. But to his surprise, his friends forgave him. "We all make mistakes," said Tom. "The important thing is to learn from them." Over time, Jonathan learned to use his invisibility for good. He helped those in need, protected the weak, and, most importantly, was always honest about his actions. The ring, seeing his change of heart, stopped working, returning Jonathan to visibility. Jonathan understood that the real magic was not in being invisible, but in being a good person, honest and brave. From then on, he lived his days with a heart full of kindness, and his nights with the peace of having done the right thing. And so, in the small town full of charm and magic, everyone learned the importance of honesty and the value of invisible but significant actions. And thus, this story ends.
The sheep who refused to follow the flock. In a meadow so green it could have been drawn with crayons, there lived a sheep named Lucy. Lucy wasn't like the other sheep. She had gray heart-shaped spots on her will and a curious mind that wouldn't quit, while the rest of the flock spent their days munching grass and obediently following the shepherd. Lucy had a habit of asking the kind of questions that made the others roll their eyes. Why do we always graze in the same spot? Isn't there more to the world than this field? She asked one day, her nose pointed toward the horizon. The flock's leader, an old and slightly grumpy ewe named Gertrude, glared at her. Because that's how it's always been done, Lucy. Sheep graze, sheep follow, no questions. That's the rule. But Lucy couldn't help it. It was like her brain had a big red button that said, "Ask why." One sunny morning, when the grass was still wet with dew and the sky was painted in soft pinks, the shepherd arrived earlier than usual with a wide grin. He opened the gate and called out to the flock, "Come on, my woolly friends. Big day ahead." The sheep shuffled into line, one after another, with Gertrude leading the way. Lucy hesitated. Something about the shepherd's excitement felt off. He looked a little too much like the fox she'd once seen licking its chops near the chicken coop. "Where are we going?" Lucy asked, her voice cutting through the chatter of baying sheep. "Who cares?" Gertrude barked back. "The shepherd says go, so we go." End of discussion. Lucy frowned. Right? Because that's never led to trouble, she muttered under her breath. Instead of following the flock, Lucy climbed a small hill near the meadow, a feat that left her puffing and panting halfway up. But when she reached the top, her jaw dropped. At the end of the path, just beyond the trees, she spotted a big, noisy truck with bold letters on the side, "Fresh Meat Market." "Oh, no, no," Lucy gasped. "They're not taking us to greener pastures. They're taking us to become lamb chops." Without wasting a second, Lucy bolted down the hill, her little hooves barely keeping up with her determination. She caught up with the flock just as they were nearing the forest. "Stop," she shouted, skidding to a halt in front of Gertrude. "What is it now, Lucy?" Gertrude groaned, clearly annoyed. "It's a trap. The shepherd's taking us to that truck. And trust me, it's not for a joyride. We have to turn around." The other sheep exchanged nervous glances. They weren't sure whether to believe Lucy or keep following Gertrude, who had led them safely for years. "Lucy," Gertrude said with an exasperated sigh, "do you have any proof? Or is this another one of your wild ideas?" "Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. There's another way out of here. Follow me, and I'll show you," Lucy pleaded. The flock buzzed with nervous whispers. A young ram named Billy, who had always admired Lucy's bravery, stepped forward. "I think we should listen to her. What's the worst that could happen?" Gertrude huffed, clearly offended. "The worst? We could end up lost in the middle of nowhere. That's what. But fine, if you're also keen on Lucy's wild goose chase, go ahead. Just don't say I didn't warn you," Lucy smirked. "Thanks for the vote of confidence, Gertie. Come on, everyone." Lucy led the flock up the hill, which turned out to be no small feat. One sheep tripped over a rock, another got distracted by a particularly delicious patch of grass, and Billy managed to get his wheel stuck in a bush. "Billy, this is no time to start a relationship with a shrub," Lucy scolded, yanking him free. Finally, after what felt like hours of climbing, the flock reached the top of the hill. On the other side lay a lush valley filled with wildflowers, sparkling streams, and grass so green it almost glued. It was a paradise, untouched and open, with no fences or shepherds in sight. "We made it," Lucy cheered, collapsing onto the soft grass. The other sheep bleated with joy, frolicking in the meadow like lambs. Even Gertrude, who had reluctantly followed at the last minute, couldn't hide her amazement. From that day on, the flock saw Lucy in a new light. She wasn't just the curious sheep with too many questions. She was their hero. While Gertrude remained the leader for everyday matters, Lucy became the one they turned to when things got tricky. As for Lucy, she didn't stop asking questions. In fact, she encouraged the others to start thinking for themselves, too. And every time the flock came across a fork in the road, they didn't just blindly follow, they paused, looked around, and made sure they were heading towards something better. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is ask why, thinking for yourself and standing up for what's right might not always be the easiest path, but it's the one that leads to true freedom. The sun and moon's magical friendship.
Long time ago, in a corner of the vast universe, there lived two great friends, the sun and the moon. The sun, always radiant and bright, was the king of the day, while the moon, delicate and silvery, illuminated the nights with her soft glow. Although they had very different personalities, they shared a friendship so strong that neither distance nor time could break it. The sun was a cheerful guy, always laughing and cracking jokes. "Hey, moon! What does one ray of light say to another? See you in a second," he'd tease whenever he could. The moon, on the other hand, was quieter, poetic, and somewhat dreamy. She preferred the silence of the cosmos and deep conversations, but they complemented each other perfectly. However, there was one small problem. They could never be together. The sun illuminated the day, and the moon the night, as if they were part of an endless dance where they always turned away at the last moment. "It's unfair," the sun lamented as he said goodbye at dusk, making way for his friend. "We spend so much time apart. I'm here, shining all day, and you hidden behind the stars." "I know," sighed the moon softly, "but that's the way of the universe, sun. You and I have our own moments to shine." Despite their roles in the sky, both longed to meet. They were great friends and wished they could spend more time together sharing stories and more laughter. But there was a solution. It wasn't something common, but every once in a while something magical happened, something that allowed them to meet, even if just for a brief moment. These much-awaited encounters were known by the inhabitants of Earth as eclipses. "Oh, moon! Our next eclipse is just around the corner," the sun exclaimed with an energy that almost made his rays sizzle. "It's going to be spectacular! You and me together in the sky, everyone watching. A true cosmic party." The moon smiled shyly. Though the sun was always so exuberant, she too was excited. Eclipses not only allowed them to be together, but they were also moments when they could combine their lights and show the universe the beauty of their union. And then the big day arrived. The sun, more radiant than ever, waited eagerly for his meeting with the moon. When she finally appeared, sliding gently in front of him, the entire sky darkened for a moment, and the two were face to face. "Moon! What a joy to see you up close again," said the sun with a smile so big that if it weren't for the eclipse, it would have lit up the entire cosmos. "It's always a pleasure, sun," the moon responded in her calm tone. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to share the sky with you more often, but then I realize that these brief moments are what make them so special." The sun nodded, for once putting aside his jokes. "It's true. If we were together all the time, it wouldn't be the same. Perhaps I wouldn't appreciate your soft and calm light as much. Every eclipse is a reminder of how much I value our friendship." "Exactly," said the moon with a soft, glowing smile. "Sometimes true friendship isn't measured by how much time we spend together, but by how we appreciate the moments we do share." As they spoke, the people on Earth looked up at the sky in wonder. Some, with special glasses, observed the eclipse. Others simply sat in the shade that the event produced without fully understanding the magic behind what they were seeing. But the sun and the moon didn't need to be understood. For them, that brief moment together was worth more than any scientific explanation. Finally, as with all beautiful things, the eclipse began to end. The moon started to slide out of the sun's light, returning to her place among the stars. "Well, my friend," said the moon, "until next time. Remember that, even if we're not together all the time, I'm always watching over you from here." The sun, with his usual energy, replied, "And I'll be lighting your way. Don't let the stars steal all the spotlight while I'm gone." The moon let out a small laugh, something rare for her. See you soon, sun. Keep shining as brightly as always. And so, with the moon's departure, the sun once again lit up the earth with all his splendor, knowing that their next reunion, though distant, would be just as special as always. True friendship doesn't always mean being together all the time. Sometimes, the beauty of a relationship lies in the moments shared, however brief, and in the appreciation we feel for those who, though far away, are always present in our hearts. Like the sun and the moon, a strong friendship transcends distance and time, shining beyond all limitations.
The journey of Amanda and Leo on the magic globe.
Small and peaceful village, surrounded by hills and tall trees, lived Amanda and Leo, two siblings known for their curiosity and love for adventure. One day, while exploring their grandmother's attic, they found an old, dusty book containing the story of a magic globe capable of taking its travelers to unimaginable places. Intrigued and excited, Amanda and Leo decided to search for the globe. After days of searching, at the foot of a hill, hidden among bushes and wildflowers, they found the globe, as colorful and majestic as the book described it. With courage and a touch of naivety, the siblings boarded the globe, and with a strong gust of wind, they began their journey. The globe carried them beyond the clouds, through snow-covered mountains, and over vast oceans. Each place they visited taught them a new lesson. On Cooperation Island, they had to work together to help a group of animals build a shelter before the storm. Here, they learned the value of collaboration and how, by joining forces, great challenges can be overcome. Then, the globe took them to the Forest of Empathy, where they found a sad butterfly trapped in a spider's web. Amanda and Leo, with care and patience, freed the butterfly, who thanked them deeply. The siblings learned the importance of empathy and caring for others, no matter how small or different they may be. Further on, in the mountains of perseverance, they faced a difficult and steep path. Despite falls and obstacles, they didn't give up. With each step, they remembered that perseverance is key to reaching the highest peaks and achieving our dreams. Finally, the magic globe brought them back home, just in time for dinner. Amanda and Leo, with eyes sparkling with excitement, shared their adventures with their family, talking about the lessons learned and the incredible friends they made along the way. That night, as they watched the magic globe rest peacefully under the stars, Amanda and Leo understood that the greatest journey had not been just about distant places, but about discovering the values of cooperation, empathy, and perseverance, and how these qualities can transform the world around. Then,
The Magic Paintbrush.
Max's studio was a place full of color and creativity. Brushes, canvases, and drawings everywhere. Max, a passionate young artist, is sitting at his work table with a blank sheet of paper in front of him. Max picks up a magic glowing paintbrush for his toolbox. He looks at it in amazement. One day, Max discovered a very special brush, a brush that possessed magical power. When Max painted with it, his drawings came to life. Max takes the brush and begins to draw on the blank sheet of paper. As he draws a sun, it comes to life and shines brightly. Max felt an indescribable thrill as his creations became real. Max draws a dog, and the dog comes to life, moving and barking with joy. But Max quickly learned that the paintbrush also had a dark side. If he used it irresponsibly, it could create chaos. Max draws a tornado and chaos erupts around him. Objects fly through the air and the wind blows hard. The paintbrush was a reminder of the importance of responsibility and integrity. Max takes the paintbrush and carefully puts it away in its case. He then begins to draw with a normal paintbrush. Max learned to use his artistic talent for the benefit of others. He understood that he should create beauty and joy in the world instead of chaos and destruction. Max draws a flowering tree, and a family of birds settles in its branches. Peace and harmony fill the studio. From that day on, Max knew that his magic paintbrush was not only an artistic tool, but also a reminder of the values that would guide him in his life. Max smiles as he looks at his artwork, full of life and happiness. And so, Max learned the value of responsibility, integrity, and using his artistic talent for the benefit of others. Max says goodbye to his studio and goes out to explore the world, taking with him the valuable learnings that the magic paintbrush brought him. And so, the story of Max and his magic paintbrush teaches us that art can bring joy and wonder into our lives, as long as we use it responsibly and with love. The screen darkens as music fills the air, conveying a message of hope and creativity.
The Invisible Boy.
Once upon a time, there was a boy named Jonathan. Jonathan was a very curious and quite mischievous boy, always looking for new adventures and ways to surprise his friends. One day, while exploring his grandmother's old attic, he found a mysterious ring. Without thinking twice, he put it on and, to his amazement, became invisible. At first, being invisible seemed like the best trick in the world. Jonathan could explore the town without being seen and hear the most interesting secrets. He could take sweets from the jar without anyone noticing and play pranks on his friends without them knowing who it was. But soon, Jonathan began to realize that his new ability brought not only fun. One day, while invisible, Jonathan heard his best friend, Tom, talking to other kids. "Sometimes I wish Jonathan would be more honest," said Tom. "It bothers me when he plays heavy pranks and doesn't admit it was him." Jonathan, feeling a pang of guilt, began to understand that his invisible actions had visible consequences. That night, Jonathan reflected on what he had heard. He realized that, although being invisible gave him power, it also gave him the responsibility to use it wisely. He'd decided that the next day he would change his behavior. The next day, Jonathan saw Mrs. Maggie desperately looking for her lost purse. Without thinking twice, he found it and left it at her door. Although no one knew it was him, Jonathan felt warmth in his heart. Being invisible allowed him to help without seeking recognition. A few days later, Jonathan saw a group of kids bullying a new girl at school. Invisibly, he intervened, scaring away the bullies and comforting the girl. Although no one knew of his heroic act, Jonathan felt he had done the right thing. One afternoon, Jonathan decided to confess his past pranks to his friends. "Guys, it was me who played those pranks. I'm really sorry," he said, expecting the worst. But to his surprise, his friends forgave him. "We all make mistakes," said Tom. "The important thing is to learn from them." Over time, Jonathan learned to use his invisibility for good. He helped those in need, protected the weak, and, most importantly, was always honest about his actions. The ring, seeing his change of heart, stopped working, returning Jonathan to visibility. Jonathan understood that the real magic was not in being invisible, but in being a good person, honest and brave. From then on, he lived his days with a heart full of kindness, and his nights with the peace of having done the right thing. And so, in the small town full of charm and magic, everyone learned the importance of honesty and the value of invisible but significant actions. And thus, this story ends.
Thank you for helping us reach 1,000 subscribers. See you in our next magical story.